close calls too. You know, you try to eliminate that so you don't have too many. But I was going to the air show in Birmingham back in '86, I think, in this, and I had an engine sling a rod on takeoff.
Mm.
Of course, it trashed the engine. But I managed to get the airplane stopped before I got down the runways, and I didn't tear the airplane up. And that was a memorable experience. Costly too.
Were you at the air show that year that the guy crashed at the air show, but he lived? He was.
Yeah.
Oh, that was scary.
Yeah, a little blue and white airplane. Yeah. I was sitting on the end of the runway with a team. We were sitting there. We were next, and I was sitting on the end of the runway. I watched him spin, going to the trees with it. And I said, well, we might as well taxi back. They're not going to be flying right away. What was funny, that was Jim Owens Jr.
Yeah.
And what was funny about my brother ran over there and was the first one on the airplane. Ran up to the wreckage and looked in there and nobody was in there. About that time I got a tap mark on the shoulder and it like scared him to death. And Jim said, he said, I can't do it. He said, what do you mean? He said, I can't go back up there and face those people. He said, I got all my beer drinking buddies up there. He said, they'll never let me live this down. Up and why you won't jump out. If you can still control the airplane, there's no need to be like that. The main reason I wear one like in the T6, I fly it more than do anything else, is in case flying cross country you have some sort of failure. If you, especially like if you're flying along here and thing catches on fire or something like that, and you're 10 or 12,000 feet, you're not going to get to the ground without burning up. That's really, you can get out there, if you fly and you feel like you've done a good routine, it gives you a good feeling. I have flown shows I felt like going to land somewhere else. A lot of times the crowd doesn't know the difference, but
no, they don't.
if I messed up a maneuver, I know it. It does kind of frustrate you sometimes. I think kind of a good philosophy on doing aerobatics is something that a good friend of mine told me years ago. Said, you always want to, don't ever do anything that's really potentially dangerous, but do something worthwhile. That's kind of a good rule of thumb to do.
Looks to me like it's dangerous when they fly so low to the ground. It looks like
it depends on what you're doing.
Upside down and everything.
It depends on what you're doing. If you're executing a recovery low to the ground, now that's risky, but it's very little risk at all in just flying low.
Oh, really?
You can come up here and do for instance, like doing a loop. And you right off the deck, you pull up and you go up, you let it run over the top, and then you come back down, you fly right back down on the deck. That looks like it's really spectacular. But actually, what you could do when you got right here is just pull out and gain 1,000 feet, but you let it run back down for the effect. And that's not difficult to do. If you were trying to do a spin and you spun it down to ground level to execute your pull out, and then that's foolish.
Some people do that at air shows.
Some people do,
Looks like your wing could.
I just don't like to push it that far. You can operate at 100%, and then you run the risk of going over that boundary, or you can back down to 90%, and then you've got your little buffer. I just think you need to be careful. I like to do as much as I can do, but I'm not gonna push it past what I know is what I'm capable of. That's what practice is for. You go out there and find out what you're capable of.
You like the wing walkers?
I wouldn't mind doing the flying. I'm not gonna walk on flying.
I wouldn't either. These guys putting their wives out there.
The uh, directional gyro and the artificial rising would have took up an area about this big, you know, those two instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a lot, been changed up a lot.
That pilot's point of view there.
Yeah.
You were talking about they modify these things to make them look like corporate planes. That's criminal. To do
Yeah.
something like this.
Well, see, back when in the 50s and all, you couldn't paint them like this. It wasn't.
Military markings at all.
It wasn't until about the middle 70s, or early 70s, they decided that you could paint an airplane if it was an antique, or you know, definitely out of service type airplane. You could paint it in a military paint. But see, in the late 50s or 60s, you know, these things hadn't been out of service that long, and so they didn't want military aircraft to get confused with civilian aircraft, so they wouldn't let you paint them military. But now that they're obviously obsolete, then they don't seem to move. And I did, like yesterday, when I went to Tuscaloosa in that tracker. See, the military still had some of those up until about the mid 80s. And I landed at Tuscaloosa yesterday. The guy asked me, says, "You military or you general aviation?" Because they're supposed to log how many landings they have of each kind. And you want to know what I want.
Anyway.
Production plant. And they all they were just, of course they were bare metal, but they were silver with just the stars and the serial number, and you know, just no markings on them hardly at all. Especially no squadron markings. And so we decided we were going to paint this just to make it look like that. And of course we did add a little color to it, just so it wouldn't be so plain looking. But then kind of an afterthought, Tom decided to put his initials on there. And they actually should have been about, letters should have been about that tall for the look. That airplane painted up like theirs. Pete Peterson and Tommy Hayes, and Kit Carson, Jaeger, and it was pretty neat. In fact, they used something to paint schemes on that was his first and second. You know, in fact, you hear some stories, you know. Of course, once you learn to fly the T6, and that was the step, you flew the T6 about 100 hours, and then it wasn't all that bad because it still stayed on the ground. You know, the only thing you really had any trouble with is keeping it going straight because of the horsepower. But on land, landing, it's not hard to land. It's going a lot faster. That's the main thing you have to do is get yourself failed on it and get it plopped down and really messed it up.
Did he retire or die or something?
No, he's got his medical results.
Is that what happened?
And then he's had an Australian pilot's license issued in the world except this one. They won't let him fly in the States.
Who is that?
Bob Hoover.
Famous air show pilot.
And what's really kind of thing about it was this is the country that he fought, you know, in World War II, IV, and all that, and they won't let him fly. And every other country in the world.
Why would they not?
Well, he's getting old. He's about 75 now. Well, maybe 72 or 73 years old, and he's finally just getting old.
And they think he's
they're
too old to
talking
fly.
about I flew yesterday about 30 minutes yesterday. Give a couple of guys, we got our suppliers down here. I ride them around. I need to practice anyway.
I was going to ask, where do you practice?
Right here.
What about in your team effort?
Well, either here or in Jackson. The other two members I've got is close to Jackson, Mississippi. We fly with them.